Last but not least, we have the gentleman on our panel. Rashidi Williams. Rashidi Williams from Nigeria, representing University of California, Berkeley. And Rashidi is an LGBT advocate. Rashidi, please.
Thank you, speakers. Yeah. I really don't know what to say after 6 great young African leaders have spoken. So I'm like, I don't. But I'm speaking on the issues of sexual orientation and gender identity on the African continent. And in 2006, the rhetoric that we heard was LGBT people were not existing on the continent. Maybe we should leave South Africa out of the equation. In 2015, what we're hearing is gay issues are a non-issue. The conversation have shifted from gay people are not existing on the continent to being that gay issues are a non-issues. It shows how far we've gone in our conversation in realizing that, these people exist. But we don't want to recognize the fact that their issues are our own issues, and they are issues to be dealt with on the African continent. So the question I usually ask is, if gay issues are non-issues, or to be more broad, if LGBT issues are non-issues, why? One, why is Africa moving in the path of criminalization on something that is apparently a non-issue? Two, why does the blood of religious leaders boil to 100 degrees centigrade when it comes to LGBT issues? And why is it that LGBT issues become a political score point for politicians on the continent? It shows one thing, that LGBT issues are issues on the continent, but we are afraid to deal with the issues. So we need to begin to ask ourselves, why are we afraid to deal with LGBT issues? Or why are we afraid to talk about on sexuality, sexual diversity, sexual orientation, and gender identity issues? I think that the pursuit of the criminalization of people on the continent, especially LGBTI persons, is not the panacea for the issue that we say is a non-issue. It's the wrong direction in which Africa is moving. And we as civil society leaders, we as young African leaders, working in different spheres of life, need to be able to tell our leaders that the pursuit of criminalization for persons who identify as lesbian, gays, bisexual, or transgendered person is not a panacea to the issue. That is not what we should be doing at this point in our time. It's the 21st century. LGBT people have been shifting conversation right from time. The women's rights conversation was actually LGBT people were very strong in that conversation. When it comes to the emancipation of the girl child on the African continent, LGBT advocates were very strong in that conversation. When you look at female genital mutilation, LGBT people, advocates were very strong in that conversation because they know the impotence, and they realize the intersectionality of the human rights of everyone on the continent. So if you talk about girls' issue, you're talking about LGBT issues. If you talk about boys' issues, you're talking about LGBT issues. If you talk about women's issue, you're talking about LGBT issues. So our leaders, our president, our legislative leaders should not sit in parliament and be saying that LGBT issues are non-issues. No. Our bodies, and in fact the bodies of everyone, are not grounds for legislative battles. And as LGBT people, we refuse that. We say no, that is enough. We need the conversation to be shifted from that of criminalization to that of dialogue. We want people to dialogue on the issue. We want people to talk on the issue because these are human issues. My fundamental right of dignity, my fundamental right to life, my fundamental right to health, my fundamental right to privacy, my fundamental right, whatever it is, we need to begin to have that conversation. In Nigeria, when the president signed the Same-Sex Marriage Prohibition Act into law, just immediately after that, people picked up plaques and go into people's house as late as 1 a.m. in the morning to chase people out of their house. Not because they knew these people were LGBT, but just because they perceived people people to be LGBT. That is wrong, and that is not the African spirit. We need to change that. The African spirit is the African spirit of love. It's the African spirit of understanding your fellow human being and bringing compassion to them. The African spirit is not that of violence and meting out violence against people. So when you ask me, what is the future that I see for the African continent in the next 10 years, for the boy that is growing up to be gay, for the girl that is growing up to be lesbian, I think I see an African future that will recognize them and love them and accept them for who they are. And I think that's the reason why I'm here, to change that discourse, to bring to the table that every human life matters on the African continent. And as civil society leaders, I think we should drop our fears at the door, whether it is a fear of gay people coming to full equality when it comes to marriage. Let's drop that fear at the door. But let's talk about the conversation for the human rights protection for everyone on the continent. Because if LGBT people are not liberated, then I don't think any one of us is liberated. On that point, thank you.